everyone, and welcome to this very special CUBE conversation with Snowflake. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight. Today, we have two great guests with us here to talk about their announcements from HIMSS 2025. I would like to first welcome Alina Henderson. She is Strata's VP of Healthcare Solutions. Welcome to the program, Alina.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you
And
very
next
much.
we have,
It's nice to be here.
great. And next we have Joe Warbington. He is Healthcare Industry Principal at Snowflake. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Joe.
Thanks, Rebecca. Nice to be here.
So Snowflake and Strata have long collaborated, but the big news, Joe, is that Strata is teaming up with Snowflake to build one of the largest comparable healthcare financial databases in the US. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about that partnership?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Like you mentioned, we've been working together for years now, and it's really come out of the needs of our customers coming together and saying we're hungry for data. Although we have lots of it, we want to work with this better at scale and put all these things together so that we can take better care of our patients. And Aline, you probably heard this before. There's this great saying, no money, no mission. So this is a big thing for us in healthcare. If you can't be financially sound, you're not going to be able to take care of those patients.
That's exactly right, Joe. I would echo that. Over the last few years and really, I'd say a couple of decades, one of the things that Strata has been focused on is making sure that our customers have all of the data they need, not only to analyze and understand how their operational performance affects their financial stability, but also find ways to improve that because so much of that trickles down to the patient experience. And so we're really excited to be partnering with Snowflake and continuing that partnership, not only to continue strengthening our architecture, but bringing in additional sets of data and more complicated data that our providers struggle to really manage and use collectively. So by bringing together financial, clinical, operational, as well as claims data that's really complicated and to assess and analyze, we're able to provide our provider organization customers with a lot of visibility, transparency, and a lot faster decision making in what they're doing day to day.
Yeah, so as you said, it will really enhance healthcare organizations' ability to make these financial decisions. How does unifying Strata's financial, operational, clinical, and other data in Snowflake's platform, how does that improve healthcare organizations' access to these critical insights that, as you say, they need in order to make these decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. What it really comes down to is bringing together the intersection of clinical and operational data. And the reason that that's complicated is that financial and operational data often sits in a vertical structure. Think of a general ledger. It is organized by facilities and by departments and where the data is captured. Clinical care is delivered in a much more horizontal fashion. Patients go through multiple departments, multiple areas and facilities of a provider organization. And then when you also add in claims data, that is the way that payers and providers interact, that amplifies the complexity of that information. For organizations to be able to really drill down and identify variation, to reduce unwanted variation, to reduce cost and drive affordability for their patients, they need to be able to triangulate that data and connect it, whether that's through connecting it by understanding the impact of certain patient delivery decisions, meaning the delivery of care for specific patients, or using insights in AI to find opportunities to improve that care. And it's not about just critical clinical care. Our focus is on the data that informs the financial impact, the operational impact of the decisions being made within that hospital and facility. So the more that they can bring that data together, the more they're able to identify anomalies and then improve those and reduce variation and pass those savings and improved care down to their patients.
Excellent. So, Joe, Alina has just described the exceedingly complex environment for data in these healthcare organizations. I'd love to zoom out a little bit and ask you about where you see AI as making the biggest impact now in healthcare management, and what do you see still on the horizon?
Yeah, absolutely. Alina made a lot of great points. And people, I think, these days are increasingly moving around. I definitely myself moved during COVID. New doctors, new health plan, all these good things. People change jobs, so your financial trail follows you as well. So there's a lot of like data, data crumbs that are all over the place. We want to help organizations stitch this together because AI is really amplifying what people can do with this information. And if we don't have the right data set behind it, we're going to make perhaps poorer decisions than we could. And so AI today, I think a lot of people think about the shiny objects, differential diagnoses, giving you a better drug. But AI is being used today to actually match up these really complex data sets to cleanse the data that we know is dirty from the get-go, depending on, how you put it in as a patient, how your doctors have put it in, the care, providers that you see. So we're helping with that early on. Let's make sure your data is clean and robust so that when you do apply AI to it, you can trust it. And I think that's how we get into things like personalizing your care. All of us want a better experience with our doctor. We want those time windows shortened. Well, to put AI in that place, we have to make sure we have the right data first. So that's always the foundational step here. And of course, we're all trying to, reduce the burden that we have on everybody that uses this health technology across the board. So we can make it easier. The technology can be in a way invisible. I think that's where AI really has a lot of promise. It's not just chatting with a bot anymore. It's doing things behind the scenes, but that you can trust.
Alina, Joe is talking about the patient experience, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about how organizations can better harness their data to create a smoother, more connected experience for all of us who will inevitably receive care at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Patients care first and foremost about the quality of care they receive, but a quick second behind that is the cost of care that they have to take on after that care delivery. And what we're seeing is a lot of advancements in how organizations are finding ways to be more efficient in that delivery of care. Where we're seeing advancements in AI is really around anomaly, not advancements, I would say strong adoption in AI is around anomaly detection, projection modeling, and analytical insights. What organizations and provider organizations in the country need to do better, consistently are looking to do better in, is projecting what's going to happen and being prepared to service their patients. That could mean a number of things. That could mean managing current volume census and staffing to understand where nursing units might need more support to be able to provide the right level of care for patients. That can also be in, like I said earlier, reducing the cost of care. That is what brings affordability to the patients at the end of the day. And as organizations continue to find ways to drive those efficiency, to find ways to provide patient access, meaning opening facilities, driving growth and partnership in areas that really demand that new that capacity. That's how they can improve that patient experience, by meeting the patient where they are, by providing affordable care, and by ensuring that they have the staff to support those patient needs.
Joe, I really love what Alina's saying about improving the quality of care, driving down the cost of care, and promoting accessibility. When you think about those things and this idea of future-proofing healthcare technology, what should they be prioritizing to make sure that their systems can adapt?
Think that a lot they already have the right mindset. Everybody's mission is the quintuple or the quadruple aim, depending on how many elements that you want there. And the finance, the clinical, the population health side, the experience of both the patient and the provider are very key. So when we use that as the lens in which we do solutions, when we figure out which big data silos do we need to put together for the first time, this is where it starts. They start doing things a little bit differently, especially if they're in new contracts. Everybody wants to move to a value-based care world. We're kind of stuck in the fee-for-service in a lot of cases. To do that, you truly need two, three, four major systems to come together to give you those insights of, well, this patient's actually not at our facility, but in the all-payer claims database from Strata, we can see that they were seen down the road. That type of stuff is out there. We now need to use that to take better care of these patients, no matter where they get their care from, and ultimately try to keep them from ending up in really costly centers like the emergency departments, the urgent cares. So this whole connected care side is not just I have an Apple Watch and it knows if I'm doing my exercise this day. It's the financial side of it. It's increasingly the health systems that know more about me as a patient and a person. What I do is it's much more impactful than me just showing up there and I'm getting care because I'm sick. So I think future-proofing that is really understanding the patients, not only that are seen at our doors, have arrived butts in beds types of thing, versus the ones that we haven't seen yet. We need to concentrate on those two to keep them out of those really costly areas and get to that area. And data is key for all of that.
Alina, Joe mentioned the silos, which are a challenge in so many organizations, particularly in healthcare. What's working right now to break down the silos, and what are the challenges that remain? What's getting in the way?
Yeah, I think a lot of the challenges that remain is what Joe opined on, which is the quality of the data that's being used. We're seeing a lot of organizations that are carrying kind of what I call almost technical debt in the data that they have from conversions in the source systems, from conversions, from M&A activity, from growth. And so the more that organizations are investing time in understanding their data, their source systems, the workflows that drive data into those systems, and how to standardize and normalize those across their facilities, the better that they'll be equipped to look at those analyses across the organization, find anomalies, find opportunities for improvements, and really meet, again, their patient where they are. I think where we're seeing a lot of improvement in organizations investing in this and investing in platforms like StrataJazz to bring that data together. It is an onerous and heavy uplift to really start to normalize all of the source data that you have in your system. So both AI, bringing together data like we do with Snowflake and normalizing that, creating comparative analysis by running data from multiple systems across kind of consistent cost models, those types of things allow organizations to make better use of their data. Whereas today, what we continue to see is really largely just that historical data silos. So more investment, as we're seeing in organizations, really along their long-term path for data use is helping to reduce that.
Joe, I want to talk about regulation. Healthcare is obviously a highly regulated industry. And now here we have this emerging technology in the form of AI, which, as you said, represents both the new shiny object, the potential for drug discovery and other incredible new medical devices, and also potential to improve the patient experience, make it more streamlined, make it more customized and personalized. How can organizations, in your mind, strike the right balance between compliance and also pushing the boundaries of what's possible with AI?
Yeah, this is where Snowflake, I think, and where Strata is doing really interesting things and shines because we've reached that tipping point and kind of the future proofing side that I didn't really touch on is we everybody's bursting at the seams with data already. We have been on premise in healthcare for decades now. It's reached its kind of end of life in many situations, and that's just on the structured data side. Now we're into video, audio, all these things, telemetry data, real-time information, and that's where the cloud really shines. But I think there was a hesitancy years ago, and healthcare has kind of caught up to some of the rest of the industries because of the regulations that are there. So is your data secure? Is it protected from ransomware? Is it these things? The cloud is increasingly the best place to have that information, to trust it, to govern it. And in the case of these enormous data sets that organizations sit on, like Strata, they don't have to send you all of that data, and then you as an organization have to download it, figure out where to put it, pay for a lot of storage. This connection now, our new interoperability mode with Snowflake allows you to just kind of peek into that data from Strata, peek into the information from a payer. If you're a health system, you don't have to store it, but you're sharing, you're collaborating on it. This is a really new way of working with data at scale that just wasn't possible before because you can't store that amount of information. And you definitely don't want to have 80 copies of your patient data floating around in all these different spots. So you can secure it in one, the main, hosting location, and then allow others to securely access it. That is really catching the eye of a lot of organizations from our federal customers across the board. And we're in heavily regulated industries in finance and healthcare as well.
I
Alina,
would
go on, please.
I was just going to say, I very much agree with that. I think in the data and financial management side, regulations actually have made it easier for AI adoption and for large data model adoption because it's built trust on the provider side. I think where there's more risk of kind of pushing compliance and adoption is really on the clinical side. There's a lot of understanding of kind of sensitivity around in clinical decision making, care pathways that could be driven by technology and AI. And I think those things will continue to remain really close because there's an appetite and a need to kind of push the boundaries of that to get the most value out of those clinical insights. Financial performance management side, I think that, like I said, regulations have actually opened it up a little bit and made it more comfortable for organizations to use cloud-based technology. And we're going to see a lot of continued improvement in efficiency. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit for us to continue improving there with technology.
Well, it's the perfect segue to my question because interoperability was really one of the buzzwords at HIMSS this year. And there's so much chatter and buzz about cloud-based solutions making healthcare data more accessible. But what does that look like in practice, Alina?
Yeah, I mean, in practice, it's bringing together what Joe just said, thousands upon millions of rows of data, and using whether it's large data model processing to really understand the insights out of that data, both to look back and say what could we be doing better, and then to project forward and say how do we need to better invest to support our communities and our patients. Examples of that, as I mentioned before, the vertical data and the horizontal data tend to live in different places. Bringing that together, understanding things like if there's an increase for demand in orthopedic care, what's the most efficient location? What are the right recruitment strategies? And what's the right capacity that a hospital CFO should consider when they're looking to grow their business? That's the type of decision making that organizations have struggled to make because they have their financial data in one place and they have their clinical data in another, and then they haven't even had their patient or kind of market or community data incorporated into that. We've brought all three sets of those data together so that they can understand and say, based on what our financial models tell us, based on the recruitment and the capacity that we have within our clinical workforce and the demand of the patient population, here's the best place for us to be and how we can service our communities in the most efficient and effective way possible.
So I'd like to get both your thoughts on this last question about how organizations can avoid common pitfalls when making this shift and your advice for them who are perhaps struggling as they navigate this brave new world. Joe, let's hear it from you first.
Yeah, I'm definitely an eternal optimist in this space. So I like the cutting edge stuff. I like when health systems are trying to push the boundaries, but in a very safe and trusted nature. So I just must think like if you're not using AI, you need to wake up and think like, why aren't you doing this? Because everybody else around you is trying to figure it out. Last year was a lot of experimentation. As Lena said, we're seeing a lot of these things go into live production use cases. People are getting excited. And now it's where else do I need to plug this in? So we almost have to take a step back and say, how does this align with our mission? Where can we fit these things in? And really great points have been made across this whole thing. We could talk for hours, I feel like, but just that patient journey side, I want to touch on that for a second. If you're in the EHR, just to see where a patient in front of you has been, you're in 100 different tabs within the EHR to try to find that, piece that together. They don't have the time to do that, let alone all of the cares, settings, things that are in claims that we're seeing outside, or the behavior or telemetry data that we've talked about. So AI is helping actually put all this stuff back together and give your clinician, give your financial biller a better picture of you as a patient, as a member. And that's the really exciting side, that we're finally using this stuff to pull it all together and really help individuals, but populations at the same time.
Alina, we're making AI real. What do you have to add?
We certainly are. We're seeing it move very quickly in a reactionary mode. There's certain components of, especially the insurer, the payer provider communications and engagement, where providers have almost no choice but to invest and really meet those payers where they are. I think that where we're seeing kind of additional or considerations for organizations that are going to be adopting it is really to focus on change management. As Joe is the eternal optimist, I am as well, and I'm also really focused on change, because change management within the provider space is really difficult. These institutions have been around for decades and oftentimes largely operating like non-for-profits, as they are, which is a different model than a for-profit business. So change in a non-for-profit situation or scenario really needs to be thoughtful. And to do that, I would recommend organizations start small, find champions within their organizations, within their enterprises who are excited to partner on this, who see the value, and create pilots that are going to be effective that you can then use to build evangelists across the organization to drive more adoption and to drive more interest. It is a lot easier to roll something out where there's already an appetite for that technology and that tool within the organization than when you're trying to kind of push a boulder up a hill. So starting small, developing pilots that are going to build momentum, and looking at areas that you're going to see measurable results. I think that's one of the areas, one of the challenges with AI adoption, with even, in certain cases, just other software technology adoption, is these big picture opportunities that folks and organizations want to invest in that see multi-year kind of results. I would err on the side of fail fast and try things fast. Put together proof of concepts within the organization, centralize the the stakeholders around that and the governance around that. That's something that we've seen some of our largest and most successful provider healthcare organizations doing effectively, is creating that governance, but then running multiple pilots so that they can see what works before they look to scale it further.
Great advice. Find your evangelists, embrace experimentation, fail fast, celebrate the wins. I love it. Joe
Exactly.
and Alina, both, thank you so much for coming on theCUBE. It was a great conversation.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
And thank you for tuning into this CUBE conversation. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight. You're watching theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.